Tonight I wanted to just kind of do a little breakdown. I'm not going to talk long, maybe about 30 minutes, but you have this in your packet, the 12 ideals of emotional sobriety. I just want to share a little bit about myself with each of these ideals, not really telling my story, but just kind of setting the pace for the weekend. So the first ideal of emotional sobriety is acceptance. And we learned that in step one, that I have to admit 100% that I have a problem, right? Whatever the problem that may be, and that my life is unmanageable because of that problem, right? So recognizing and accepting myself, my situation in the present moment, including both positive and negative. I have a bad habit of washing out anything negative going on in my life. I have toxic positivity, and I won't concentrate at all on what's wrong. I will focus only on we need to be happy, we need to move forward, we got to get through this, and I don't really focus at all on the negative aspects of that. And therefore, I stuff and I bury my feelings. And then what happens is I get to a point of acceptance where now it all comes crashing down and it's too much and it weighs really heavy, right? The second is hope. And I think that comes in very well with the stuffing of the feelings. Maintaining a belief in the possibility of a positive future and the ability to overcome challenges. I believe in myself, and I believe that I can get through things, but I do need a pat on the back, and I need some encouragement, and I need somebody to be rooting for me. I just do. And I think in this program, we have that with sponsorship 100%, right? I'm not the kind of person who needs to call my sponsor every day or, go to a meeting with her, all the time or have a relationship, one-on-one with her, often. But when I need her, I need her. And I have a very wonderful woman, a very receptive woman, and a very positive woman in my life that knows exactly what I need when I call. I need an atta-girl. Because I give that away. I give hope so much. It comes so naturally for me to tell you that everything is going to be okay, whatever it is you're going through. And no matter what, we'll get through it together. And no matter what, it's all going to be okay. And I fill cups, and I fill cups, and I fill cups. And I need my cup filled sometimes. And I need somebody to have the hope for me, maintaining a belief in the possibility of a positive future. I had a sponsor in my first 5 years that would say, I would always say, I know, God has a plan. And she would say, no, Meredith, God has a good plan. And that was what I needed to hear. Faith, right? Faith, cultivating a belief in something larger than oneself, whether a higher power or a personal sense of purpose. I believe that my primary purpose in this life is to stay sober and carry the message to the next suffering alcoholic, and I do that with every fiber of my being on a daily basis. Right now, I've got about 8 girls that I'm working with, from newcomers to years of sobriety, and I work steps with them, and I answer their phone calls, and I truly believe that it is where God has called me to be at this point in my life. For many, many years, I was on all the committees and I was throwing all the parties and I was doing all that stuff. But I do totally believe that is the something larger than myself is the fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I'm so incredibly grateful to be a part of it and to be a winner in this program. And to be somebody that other people look to for advice or guidance. What an honor. I was not the kind of girl that you called and asked what you should do about something, for many years of my life. I believe that my higher power I don't personify my God often in these last couple of years. I believe that my higher power is good, orderly direction, and that I provide it. And when I am giving someone guidance or advice or what to do next, I better be listening and following my own advice. And that's beautiful. That's such a beautiful part of this, is I speak and I have to do it too. Courage, facing fears and challenges with bravery and resilience, both in recovery and in your daily life. I believe that courage is doing it even when you're afraid. It is not the absence of fear. It is, I'm scared to death, but I'm going to put my pants on and I'm going to get out there. I'm going to do it anyway, no matter how scared I may be. And I think that's what courage means. And I do believe that that's what Bill means when he says emotional sobriety in facing our fears and challenges with bravery, right? Knowing that everything is going to be okay, believing that everything is going to be okay, having the hope, having the faith, but also having the courage to take action or not take action. And I believe that not taking action sometimes is the best thing that you can do in some situations, especially when it comes to what other people are doing or saying or thinking or being. Sometimes I've just got to take a back seat. Honesty is the next one, being truthful with oneself and others, even when it's difficult, and avoiding self-deception. I am a big self-deceiver. I live sometimes in a fantasy world where everything is ponies and roses and we're all going to have a great day and it's all going to be wonderful. And I think that comes from growing up in a household where I was talking to a sponsee this morning. I had breakfast with one of my girls this morning and we talked about, if you're going to cry, go to your room. Like if you're going to act like that, you need to go to your room. When you're ready to smile and have fun with the family, you can come back out in the living room and sit with us. But if you're going to act like that, go to your room until you can get yourself together. And we weren't allowed really to have or show any emotion, And then she said, well, our parents probably weren't either. And I said, I doubt our parents even dared try. And now we allow our little ones to have feelings and express those feelings and articulate those feelings and be honest about how, what's going on in their little brains. And I think that we're probably building a really beautiful world with that. Hope so anyway. But I don't really have a problem with being honest. I have a problem with being nice about it. So I want to make sure that when I'm being honest, I'm also being tactile and dignified and appreciating your dignity too, instead of being that brutal honesty that's just not very nice. Those are things that I want to work on and for myself. And the next one, patience. Understanding that recovery is a process and that emotions are normal, and practicing patience with myself and with others. I am probably the most impatient person when it comes to traffic. I cannot stand for someone to be in front of me when I am on the road. Even if they're speeding, I need to speed faster and I need to get in front of them. My husband follows semi-trucks. I don't understand it. I can't wrap my head around it, but we'll be behind one and there's miles and miles of highway in front of us. Please go around the truck. Why are we behind this truck? And then what he says is, well, it gives you a chance to practice patience. Not funny. But what I love is that recovery is a process. And in my years of being sober, working a 12-step program and being a part of this thing, it didn't come easy and it didn't come fast. Some things did. Some things came right away, right? Certain behaviors were left behind with the bottle. Certain friends were definitely left behind. And I changed immediately overnight in a lot of ways. But boy, did it take years for me to grow up. I bet I cried my eyes out in a meeting for at least 2 or 3 years every time I spoke. Oh. Thanks, Carrie. 5 or 6 years, 16 years. But it was, I need to remember that it is a process and that it does take the time that it takes. I'm not going to have 3 years in 3 months, right? And I'm not going to have, I'm not going to have a year and a week. And I'm not going to have the spoils that you get when you're sober for long term, like the lifestyle that I live today and the kind of work that I do and who I am. It took what it took to get here. And I still have some work to do. That's what I love. There's always progress, never perfection. Humility, that brings me to humility. Recognizing one's strengths and limitations and avoiding arrogance or entitlement. People tell me sometimes that they think that I'm so confident, that I walk with a lot of confidence and that I really feel, they feel that I'm very sure of myself. And that's not true. I'm very arrogant and I have a huge ego and I think I'm the shit, but I am not at all confident about it. There's this little voice in the back of my head that says, the sky is falling, everything is falling apart, everybody's judging me, nobody likes me, I suck, but what I've learned about humility is to be one of many. And that we're all on the same playing field. And that's what I tell the women that I sponsor, especially if they're brand new or if they just haven't gotten it yet until this point. We walk arm in arm in this thing. I just got here a few minutes before you did. And we are partners. And I humble myself to say, I'm not on a hilltop. I don't look down on you from up high. We are eye to eye, face to face, shoulder to shoulder. Willingness, being open to new experiences, ideas, and perspectives, and making necessary changes in one's life. When I moved a year and a half ago, I was really scared. I had a really great life in Omaha. I had a lot of service commitments. I had women that I sponsored. I had my regular meetings. I had a really good life over there, and I was really afraid when Dan said we're going to look at another town, because it's far. You may not think that it is, but how many meetings do y'all go to in Council Bluffs, right? None, okay? It's far. It's 35, 40 minutes away, okay, to get to a meeting. It really is, and it's the same when you move over there. It's 35 to 40 minute drive to get to a meeting that I once went to that used to be 5 or 10 minutes away. It takes me 25 minutes just to get to downtown Omaha. So, and I don't go to meetings at downtown Omaha, you know what I mean? I'm from North Omaha or West Omaha. And so to make that change, and it took me a minute, it took about 6 months for me to embrace my new surroundings and to embrace the people. The people are different. They're new, don't know, they've all known each other for years. I don't know them as well. And Dan still hasn't. He hasn't embraced it yet. But, I was willing. I was willing to say, okay, I'm going to stop going to Omaha meetings and I'm going to start going to meetings here in this town. And I started going to the 6:30 and the 8:30 meetings at the 500 Club, and I started to meet people. And I started going to the meetings on the weekends, and I started to meet people. And they embraced me. And what's funny is there were some people that I knew, quite a few people that I've known over the years that I served with on certain committees or at area. And so I wasn't really necessarily a stranger. And that's, then it only took a couple of months that I realized that there was a lack in good sponsorship. There was a lack of women. Number one, there's a huge lack of women, but there was a lack of women who opened the book. And so I found myself being asked, by a lot of girls, would you please be my sponsor and walk me through the steps? And it has been one of the most beautiful times of my recovery, and I'm really, really grateful that I was willing to do that, and that I was willing to open my heart to this new neighborhood and open my heart to these new people and give freely of what was freely given to me. And to them, it's new. There's a lot of people who have been in Alcoholics Anonymous for a lot of years who don't know what's written on page 25. You know, they weren't taught the same way I was taught. So there's a need. And I do everything that I can to fill that need. And that brings me to brotherly love. Cultivating empathy, compassion, and understanding for others, and extending a helping hand when needed. And that is, right? That's our responsibility statement. When anyone, anywhere reaches out for help, I want the hand of AA to be there. And for that, I am responsible. That falls on me, right? I was told when I first came into this program that 10% of the people do the work and 90% benefit from it. And do you want to be the good 10 or do you want to be the 90 that are sucking the life out of it? And that's what I was taught when I was brand new. And so I started doing the work, right? I showed up early and I set up the chairs. I stayed late and I swept the floor. I started to once you get on the committee and you start unloading people's trunks of their cars and you start, packing up the trunks of the cars after the event. And I put in the work. And you know what what happened for me is I belonged here. Now I have a job. Now I'm responsible to be here. Because pretty soon now my trunk is full of all the stuff. And it's my job now to bring it and to set it up and to tear it down. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful thing for me. I lived my life for a really long time where I would get up and I would want to help, whether we were at a family event or a golf outing with the bar or whatever. And a lot of times people would just say, Meredith, just sit down. Please sit down. And in Alcoholics Anonymous, I have never been told to please sit down. I've been given more and more responsibility. And it's such an honor and such a privilege for a girl like me. Because I was not the one you trusted with the money bag, man. I was not the one you trusted to get the keys to your car and pull it around the front. Okay, that is not me. And today, I'm the first one that people will point to do those things. And that's what I believe that emotional sobriety growth, I believe those are the spoils. Those are the rewards of emotional sobriety and growth. And that brings me to integrity. Maintaining a strong moral compass and acting with honesty and sincerity in all areas of life. I have this issue at work. I am very honest and I do things the way that they tell me at my current job, which I just got a new job, but they tell me that I see things very much in black and white. And I say, well, I'm just telling the truth. And there's a lot of gray. Is there? Or are you cutting corners and not doing the full part of the job? Because I'm reading here in the guidebook, or I'm reading here in the manual, or I'm reading here in the SOP, and it says that we need to do it this way. And I want to do it right. Even though it may take a little more time, it may cost the company a little bit more money, I am not one to do it wrong. I'm just not. And with this is the third position. This is the third opportunity for this position in my life. And third time's a charm. I told Dan, I said, if I don't get it with this company, then it's time for a career change, because I do believe in following the rules and being honest and having integrity in my work. I don't feel comfortable when I'm covering things up or I'm cutting corners. I just don't. And that is also not normal for someone like myself. But being honest and sincere in all areas of life, I really relate to that with my job. Self-discipline. I don't really have much of this one. Developing the ability to control impulses, make responsible choices, and follow through on commitments. I think one of the issues, the worst things that I have with self-discipline lately is my spending and my shopping. The fear of financial insecurity was one of the first promises that came true in my life, because I could get a job by passing a piss test. Therefore, I had a comma on my paycheck for the first time ever. And I've continued that streak, since I've been sober. But I'll tell you, I definitely am an impulsive shopper. I sometimes believe there needs to be like Amazon Anonymous meetings, because the buy now button, that guy is smart. He knows a business model when he sees one. And but making those responsible choices and following through on my commitments. I am a woman of my word today. When I say I'm going to be somewhere and I have a particular time that I need to be there, or I say I'm going to do something, I do it. I can be counted on today, and I'm very, very proud of that. But when it comes to controlling my impulses and making responsible choices, I think there's a little bit of growth that needs to be done there. And then finishing up here with service. Giving back to others and contributing to the community, finding meaning and purpose through helping others. So practicing service in all of my affairs is something that I pride myself on. Not only am I of service to Alcoholics Anonymous, it's really easy to do. You read the readings, you chair the meetings, you set up the chairs, you take down the chairs, right? All of those kinds of things. Make the coffee. You prance around the room and pour the coffee. Before I got married, I was a real big prancer. I loved to prance around the room. Especially when the Arch Boys were there, you want to make sure you make eye contact with them, Anyways, right? Eyes are up here, boys. No, but seriously, I've always been one to be of service. I was taught very early in my recovery program that, this is not a self-help group. This is not a place where you come to help yourself. This is a place where you come to help others. And once you get a little bit of sobriety under your belt, 30 days as sober as you're ever going to get, you can now pass the piss test, and it is now time for you to carry it forward. And it is now time for you to start reading the readings and setting up the chairs and making the coffee and chairing the meeting. And I'm really grateful that I had that foundation. It's really funny. Earlier, I think you asked, well, is there a requirement for chairing the 6 a.m. meeting for the meditation? I said, no, you just got to wake up and be there, please. If you say you're going to do it, just make sure you're there doing it. One thing that I would say about service, though, contributing to my community, I had some financial amends that I needed to make from my 8th and 9th step that are not possible. The people are either, gone, dead, or to bring it to their attention would be hurtful to them. And so I started to do some work outside in my community. I started doing some, different kinds of projects for the homeless, and Dan and I both, and especially in Council Bluffs. Council Bluffs has a huge, and maybe because it's such a small town, we're just inundated with it a little more, but there are a lot of visible homeless people in our little town. And so Dan takes the time to go and get when it's cold out, he goes and gets the hand warmers and takes them over to the camp. They have a little tent camp over by the river, and I've done some, jacket drives and sweater drives. And this year talked to one of the women's shelters, and they're saying, we really don't need clothes. They get a lot of that, but they need hygiene products. And so you're reaching out in my community and saying, where is the need and what is the need? And then it's really fun to get a bunch of girls together at my house and have some hors d'oeuvres, and put together care packages. And then we get to go in the truck down there and hand them out to people. It's actually really fun. And that is a way for me to pay back to my community outside of Alcoholics Anonymous, and doing that in a way that is, again, with dignity and treating people with dignity. We do a purse drive for Easter, and I've realized now that they need backpacks, so it will now be a backpack drive. But for Easter, we go down to the Sienna Francis house. We do men's care packages in Ziploc bags, but we have purses, and we stuff them full of all the things a woman needs in her purse, like a chapstick and tampons and stuff like that. And then in the back of the truck, the girls just line up, and every girl deserves a new purse for Easter. And it's really been a beautiful, beautiful mission. I've been doing that for the last couple years, and I just love it. And I would love any and all of you to participate in that. Just ask me about it this weekend, and I can give you the details. I really hope that you like this outline that I've created, and I really hope that you enjoy reading, Bill's essay on emotional sobriety and the breakout sessions. I started drinking and using drugs when I was 14 years old, and I walked into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous this last time. I was 31 years old, and I had the emotional makeup of probably a 14 or 15-year-old little girl. And it took 10 years of recovery before I sought outside help. I used the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, I utilized a sponsor, I utilized the steps in order to get well and to heal. But what I've learned in the last 5 years is that I need more. And there's a lot that happened in my life and a lot of choices that I made that I beat myself up for and that I am ashamed of. And that's not healthy. And I've come to realize that it's not okay. And so I am doing everything that I can through working the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, but also through having a therapist and getting some of that talk therapy and some of that, we're doing like EMDR therapy to kind of talk more and in depth about who I was and why I made the choices that I made and what was really going on so that I can grow into the kind of woman that I believe God wants me to be, a woman who is sober, who has dignity and grace, and who loves herself, all of herself. So thank you very much. It was an honor and privilege to share with you today. I appreciate you all, and let's